Welcome to another edition of the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, episode 406, On the Hunt for Eric. My name's Matthew Turner, alongside Ashley Soden and Poole Walker. Ant is going to be joining us in about 30 minutes' time. Boys, how you doing?
You said the name was bad, mate. I didn't think it'd be that
bad. And for once, I didn't do it. You can't blame me for this one.
But no, I'm good, mate. I'm good.
You all right, Ash?
Yeah, a bit sweaty from work, having run back because I finished about half an hour ago. So basically ran across the entirety of Birmingham. Of course, not an Uber, but yeah, I'm doing good. Just depending on how much you were following sports yesterday, I know Detroit Pistons obviously won, thank God. That was the only thing that went well for me yesterday in sports. People over here will know about the abysmic performance that Villa put in. So
abysmic,
exactly.
It was so bad we're making up words.
Exactly. And it's going to get worse on Thursday.
Who are you playing on Thursday?
Forest.
Oh, you'll beat them and send them down, and it'll be even worse. Yeah.
It's in the Europa League semi-final.
So you'll lose. So Forest are going to... Oh, no, Forest are already safe, aren't they? It's
Forest versus Spurs, yeah.
Oh, it is Forest. Oh. So if they win...
Europa.
If they win the Europa and go down, they'll be in the Champions League and the Championship.
Yes.
Oh, that's fun. I kind of want that to happen.
I'm here for that chaos.
The last time that something like that happened was I think it was either 2012 or 2013, with either Birmingham winning the League Cup and going down and then being Europa, or when Wigan won the FA Cup against Man City 1-0 in their infamous final and then went down and then were in the Europa because they won the FA Cup.
Makes sense. But hey, I watched the Pistons game and it was iffy for the first, quarter and a half. And then they pulled away and it was absolutely beautiful. They threatened to come back into it in the fourth quarter. And I was like, oh my God, we're throwing it away. It's like the full court press, they couldn't handle it at all.
Whenever Cade went off, they're like, right, full court press, let's do this.
Even then Cade was struggling with it as well. It was really weird.
Yeah.
But, hey. Anyway, congrats to the Pistons fans out there. I'm sure everything will go fine against another team that also had a Game 7.
Cavs.
Yeah, everything will be fine. God knows. Anyway, we're here to talk Lions. Discord channel, links in the live chat right now. You know what to do with that. College Football Podcast will be returning shortly. I know Ant wants to make a running start on that, so please do keep your eye out for that. And please do like and sub to this episode. You can send us a super chat on YouTube or subscribe on Twitch, and there's a tip jar in the YouTube description if you want to show your support. Let's get to some Lions news, and we've had a couple of signings, not the UDFAs who we're covering in a good amount of detail tonight, but just some regular old-fashioned street free agents in the nose tackle Jade Tufele and the linebacker Joe Bacci. And we've been around long enough now that we actually covered the draft class that Tufele was in, which is quite fun, Ash. These feel like, well, I want to say camp bodies, but, we're about to talk about a nose tackle in the UDFAs. Given the lack of depth there, worryingly, this might not be just a camp body.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I don't know how to feel about it. Like, he's got some knowledge of the sort of the position, obviously bouncing around. He was a relatively decent college prospect, but yeah, it hopefully is a camp body. But then again, we said similar about Lopez last year. It was like, oh, he'd just be a backup nose. We'll only play like 5-6 run game snaps a game and we'll be happy with that. And you look what he turned out to be. So while I'm not saying that Tufele is going to turn into the next Roy Lopez or anything, we'll wait and see in camp, because it might be that they've suddenly hit on something and he's going to turn out amazing in our new scheme, because I think we really are changing our defensive scheme. But I'm also not holding out hope that he's going to be an amazing DJ Reader replacement or anything. And the same with Bacci. He's basically your almost your Grant Stewart replacement in a way, so much that he's going to be here for special teams in camp. Maybe you can work his way into the roster there. But again, not holding out hope, because we've got our top 5 pretty much loaded in now, I think, in terms of linebackers. We know we usually carry 6 because of special teams, so maybe you can make it for that. But at the same time, if I'm Brad and I'm having to choose between Bacci and Eric Hunter, well, I'm obviously biased here, but I'm picking Hunter and his upside.
Yeah, Paul Batchy, obviously, in-state fans will know him from being a Michigan State guy drafted, well, not drafted, in 2020. He's never played more than 160 defensive snaps in any season since he came into the league. And Tufele was drafted by Jacksonville, was in Cincinnati the following year, and then was in New York with the Jets last year. He's never played more than 242 snaps in a season. So if either of these guys play any sort of significant reps on defense, we're in a bit of a worrying state.
Yeah, and as you sort of alluded to, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Like, I mean, Dufele comes in and he's possibly nose tackle 3 already, and that's behind obviously Tyreek and Chris Smith. Doesn't fill me with hope, if I'm being honest. And then with Batchy, even if he's at the bottom of the linebacker depth chart, was he linebacker 8? It's a couple of Ammies go, and all of a sudden he's seeing game time, and it doesn't feel good to me, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I'm right with you. Okay, we have some other news in terms of the players who now don't factor into the comp pick formula. These are guys that we let go and we did not attempt to sign them, so now they don't count, and it basically means they're street free agents. It means that they can sign for any team and we don't see any benefit for it. And they are the tight ends Shane Zylstra and Anthony Ferkser, tackle Dan Skipper, who we know has retired, interior offensive lineman Tristan Cologne, I should say, and tackle Jamarco Jones, nose tackle DJ Reader, defensive end Marcus Davenport, linebackers Ezekiel Turner and Zach Cunningham, and then DBs Arthur Millette and Jalen Mills. Any regrets with letting any of those guys go? Do you think any of them might or should come back, Paul?
Just because we've been talking about Batchy, my eyes go straight to Turner and Cunningham. It was about this time last year we signed Cunningham, if I remember correctly, and he was fine. He was all right. I thought a lot better about him being bottom of the depth chart than I do Batchy. So I do wonder whether he just didn't want to do OTAs. He's a bit of a vet now, doesn't fancy OTAs, and we'll sign him before training camp. We've still got 3 spots on the roster.
Yep.
But outside of that, no one there. I mean, DJ Reader's obviously the big name there. The rumours were he was signed with the Giants, but then that doesn't seem to have materialised. So if it's cheap, I wouldn't mind him back. We've just spent 5 minutes talking about our lack of depth at the position. So they're the 2 names that really, really pop out to me.
What about you, Ash?
Yeah, Cunningham definitely stands out to me because I've got my lovely depth chart that I've made up, and yeah, he plays them. He'll probably be a Mike in our scheme, and currently that's the one where we've got the least linebacker depth. Like the others, at least we've got 3 guys in each position, so you've got each string. So we probably do need another Mike in there, unless they're planning to put Rolder or something there in camp and get him double the amount of snaps. So definitely look at Cunningham. Reader again, yeah, maybe. It's going to be hard though, because I know he wants to go somewhere where he's going to be starting, and that's part of the reason why he didn't agree with the Giants. Supposedly, it's because they couldn't promise him the amount of snaps he wants, and that's why we're with Shelby Harris instead. But honestly, none of them left now. I'd probably touch, and yes, that includes me. That includes Marcus Davenport. I know the memes of obviously us bringing him always back will carry on forever, but he's not even that. And yes, Zane Zylstra, the eternal tight end 3, who I kept campaigning for us to upgrade on. It seems that I've finally won my war there. But yeah, I'm not touching any of them, because you look at all the free agent lists around on like NFL.com and all that. The number 2 and number 3 free agents behind Juwan Jennings, who's always the number 1, is Taylor Decker and DJ Reader. And if we're passing it on them, and the Giants have passed on DJ Reader, I really think it says a lot about the state of the free agency class now.
I have a look at the tight end room, and I have a look at the fact that Conklin is 3, Wright has some question marks now, Horton can't be on the roster surely, neither Thomas Gordon, and we've got Kitzelman that we'll talk about. Are we sure that Ferkser isn't better than all of those? Like, I get the feeling that we want to try out some other people, but if it ended up being that Ferkser was tight end 3 or 4 out of that lot, it wouldn't surprise me. Like, I don't want him to come back necessarily. It feels like we took him off the scrap heap. But when he played, I didn't look at him thinking you look out of place. I just didn't think he was great. But
It's weird. Tight end always seems to be a position where there's like a late change or an early change,
Mhm.
depends which way you look at it. Was it Derek D's nuts a couple of
Oh,
years
yeah.
ago? Everyone was hyping him up mainly because of their name. And then a week in, he gets cut and
Mhm.
someone else gets brought in. There's always seems to be a lot of changeover at the tight end or the bottom of the tight end depth chart. I hope it's not this year, as I'm going to talk about in a minute. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see the return of Shane Zylstra or Ferkser. I am personally, as we get onto, higher on Kitzelman than I am both of them too. And I don't even know the other guy. Who was it? Thomas Gordon? Gordon Thomas? What did I call him?
Yeah. Oh, God's sake.
And this is why I need to get Ash to read my stuff before I submit it.
I mean, you can get your revenge on me probably Wednesday more. Well, sometime Wednesday when I submit my one I'm working on.
all right, let's move it on to talk about the UDFAs that we're here to discuss. And we're going to start with one of Poole's. And it's a guy that he's had circled, I think, for a while. One of his guys. He was in several articles that Poole wrote during the draft cycle, I believe. In the tight end, Miles Kitzelman, that I referred to earlier. Poole, are you ready to go on that one?
I am, yeah.
All right, let's do it.
So Miles Kitzelman, the tight end out of Tennessee. As Matt said, he's been my guy throughout this whole process since I first watched him very early in the college season. He's 6'5", 251 pounds. He's a former JUCO prospect. He'll turn 24 early in the season. After JUCO, he spent 2 years at Bama and his last 2 years at Tennessee. So I'll get into some, not downsides necessarily, but some question marks about it first, and then I'll finish on why I like him so much. So over the last 2 years, he's had 554 yards receiving yards, sorry, which that's not a great amount. But there's two reasons for this in my eyes. Firstly, colleges don't know how to use tight ends, and that definitely Tennessee. Their offense is very run orientated, or we're going to launch it 40 yards down the field, and there's no real in between. And he's also not a natural catcher. It's not hit the strength of his game. But I think his route running is very good, but I'll get onto that in a bit. The other downside is if you watch the combine, he was the slowest there with a 4.9 flat in the 40.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know. Even I, yeah, didn't like that. However, what I will say is he looks faster than that on tape. There's plenty of times, and I went back and I watched the practices from the Shrine Bowl this week or this over the weekend, and he's burning people in that. So I don't know whether he just didn't train for it, but then why run it, or if he was carrying an injury, but then again why run it, or whether he just carries the pads better than most because he's a big guy, 6'5", 251. That's not a small fella, and he definitely looks quicker on tape. There's plenty of examples of him stressing linebackers with his vertical and horizontal speed. So what do I like about him? Firstly, it's his blocking, both in the pass game and run game. He's very technically sound, and with the 251 pounds behind him, he can get displacement. He can anchor well in pass pro. I really like his blocking tape. And then as a receiver, as a route runner, yes, like I said he's not exactly explosive, and he's not a natural catcher, but he's got quite a bit of nuance to him. He uses head fakes and stutter steps to create some separation on quick outs and option routes over the middle. He is a all-round good tight end in my view, and for me, the prospects of him making the 53 are relatively good for a couple of reasons. Firstly, the league is going very heavy towards 13 personnel. Our new OC, Drew Petzing, was one of the originators of that. So he may well want to carry 4 tight ends on the roster. Now, I would admit, being a UDFA, he's probably tight end 6 to coming into camp. Matt, you referenced Horton. Yeah, he's basically a fullback. Maybe that gives him a leg up. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. And then the other guy whose name I keep forgetting because, quite frankly, I'd never heard of him. Thomas Gordon, right? Is that right? Yeah, thanks, Ash. Thomas Gordon. Um, so I think he's got good potential to make the 53. For me, he's already a better blocker than basically the whole room, maybe outside of Laporta. That's how high I am on his blocking, and I think he's got receiving upside. So if any of these UDFAs make the roster for me, it's going to be him.
Cool. All right. I mean, I love the sound of that. We need someone in that room who can block, and we hope that would be Brock Wright. If he's better than Brock Wright at that, I mean, Brock's not exactly a world-beating receiver either. I mean, if he can do that, he could be tied too.
Absolutely. And I know there's more to blocking than weight, but what is Brock Wright? 240, 245?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's at least £10 heavy, I'd say, Kiltsman. And yes, I know weight is not everything, but there's a reason offensive linemen are 300 plus. It does matter.
Attila the Hun's asking whether you have a pro comp for him.
I don't say Attila, I don't particularly like doing comps, so now I'm scratching around the back of my head for one. So stylistically, this is, well, I'm not saying he's going to be this good, but he is stylistically like Rob Gronkowski.
Okay.
Not as good. Let's be clear. I'm not. This is why I don't like comps.
No, I mean,
Right.
in my mind, with what you were saying, like Daniel Bellinger came to mind, and I don't know whether that's
That's not a bad comp. I think Bellinger was probably a bit quicker in a straight line, but yeah, but Rob Gronkowski and I mean Gronkowski in his Tampa Bay years, whatever it was, slightly slower, but still got open, still good blocker. That sort of Rob Gronkowski, and it is also who Kiltzman styles his game after. And he seems to be the type of guy that's just good at everything because he's also a scratch golfer. So
I
if you like your
saw
golf,
that. Yeah, I thought
yeah, I
like, oh,
know.
you can bring that to the training camp where they have the golf day.
Yeah, that'll get him. That'll get him a spot in the 53.
Could do. We've had worse. Any comments, Ash?
Definitely sounds like the kind of tight end we do need, because I do agree. Even though you I did quickly look up, Brock Wright is 250. You wouldn't believe it. He's 254, Brock Wright.
Oh,
So
no, I don't believe that.
yeah, exactly. It is the kind of one we do have, and if we can, I'll say we get a steal with him. We need to do that because one of the big trends around the league now is the increase in use of blocking tight ends because of this whole free tight end sets that everyone's now doing because of Pet Singh, and then McVay copied it, and he gets credit for it. But that's part of the reason why we had the massive run on tight ends in day 2. That's why players like John Bates, who from your description, that's the guy that sticks in my mind, the guy that just got paid by Washington $9 million a year to be their blocking tight end. That's that kind of guy. And I can almost see it now, and it's going to make Matt very happy. He's the perfect guy to run the Brock Wright play with. That one where he blocks and then breezes across the formations, picks it up, and then he's got all the yak in the world. Maybe he doesn't have Brock Wright speed, because one of the things that Wright had coming out was a pretty much perfect Raz, but that kind of underrated receiving skills that no one really looked at, because that's why he's presumably UDFA, because he didn't have the receiving production. It's the kind of thing that a staff full of tight end coaches will be able to utilize, because of course that's why we have so much rotation. The back end is because Dan Campbell, former tight ends coach, Pet Singh has worked with tight ends. All this will still have that, even though Ben's been and gone, Morton's been and gone. We'll still have that because Dan knows what it takes to be an NFL tight end, and I think Kittlesman has got that. So yeah, I would not be surprised, even though he is currently tight end 6 on my roster and depth chart I think I'll run. I would not be surprised if he takes Gordon and Horton, and then we keep 4, and then next year it's Laporta, Kittlesman, and then someone else we get on day 3 next year as our tight end room.
All right, let's move on to our second player that we're going to highlight tonight. And that is a former 5-star recruit in USC's edge, Anthony Lucas, who is one of mine. Lucas, 21 years old, doesn't turn 22 until October, so quite a young prospect still coming out of college. 4-year player, was one of Texas A&M's monster recruiting class for 2022, but only spent 1 year there and played 7 games before transferring for the remainder of his college career to USC for 23, 24, and 25. During that time, played 32 games for USC, 63 tackles, 7 tackles for a loss, 3 sacks, a pass defended, a fumble recovery, and a forced fumble. But the majority of that production actually came in this most recent season. 12 games, 23 pressures, 37 tackles, 3.5 tackles for a loss, 3 sacks, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. It was the only time in his college career he's played over 231 snaps, so he's not got much tread on the tyres. All of his sacks came this most recent season, half the TFLs, over half the tackles, and that, does show up in his PFF grades, improved on every single season, snapped improve every single season. So this is a journey of ascension for him, and yet he went undrafted despite being on the consensus board in the top 100, or on the fringe of the top 100. People had him in their top 60. Some people had them just outside the top 200. So he split opinion quite a lot, and he's 6'5.5", and according to Raz, he's 256 pounds. Now, he came into the season apparently at 285 pounds. I'll come on to this in just a second, but he's a proper 7 technique. He can kind of do a little bit inside as a 5, but really, I think he projects out being a 3-foot outside linebacker, which I realise is not what the majority of people think about this player. So let's have some fun. I watched 2 games of USC against Michigan in week 7 and then at Notre Dame in week 8. And effectively, very similar story in both games. I mean, he looks lanky on tape. Like, super tall, 6'5.5", and 256 pounds. He looks like he's 256 pounds. Like, he's lost a significant amount of weight. One of the reasons for that might be that in 2024, he had a season-ending ankle injury that needed surgery, so he might have just had a little bit of weight come off him and decided to play at that weight. I do think it's one of the reasons why he actually had a little bit more production in the most recent season, because actually some unnecessary weight came off, which maybe gave him a little bit more explosiveness. Bears mentioning, he did not do any athletic testing at the Combine, did do some things at the Pro Day, but like a lot of Pro Days, they've stopped reporting a lot of these figures. I had a look at a lot of Pro Day stuff for a lot of different people, and this was not publicly disclosed, which is frustrating if you're doing this, but there we go. So, overall, versus the run, like I said, shed some weight, he looks slight. Apparently, he's an edge setter. According to all the reports I read after I'd written my report, he's an edge setter, he's a power-based guy, and he can contribute in day one on run defense. This is absolutely not what I saw on tape. Now, granted, I did watch him against Michigan and Notre Dame, who are maybe 2 of the better offensive lines in the country. But he's going to come up against better in the NFL, so, it's probably a good idea to watch those guys. He, in a 2-gapping sense, will get pushed off the ball. He doesn't play with enough leverage. He's not stout enough, and he'll get pushed around by some better offensive lines. When he is being aggressive, even against the run, when he's trying to attack in a sort of 1-gapping way, it goes one of 2 ways. Either he's totally out of the play, or he takes on the blocks fairly well and actually does close up the gap. But which one of those happens, I can't tell you. So against the run, I think, at least at the pro level right now, he's going to be a liability. He's tall, and he's not heavy. And while he might have had more production because he's lost some weight, if your route to getting on this roster is by being good against the run, this ain't it yet. So, recommendation for him is to actually put a little bit more weight back on. Not as much as 30 pounds, like as much as he dropped, but maybe 10. See how that goes. Maybe you can get back on there, but I think the run game has to kind of improve stuff. What is quite nice is that he is a very, very good tackler. So while he finds it difficult to disengage from blocks, when he's out in the open field, great form, great technique. I think that that's very good. So if he does actually improve a little bit in terms of just his anchor, I think he can see the field in run defense. So maybe it's just a little weight thing. Against the pass, obviously I said he had 3 sacks in his most recent season. He never had any before in his college career. He does play with some explosion. He has some urgency, but he looks like a player who should be relying on translating speed to power. And he doesn't do it particularly well. He has an outside spin move, which I saw once in 2 games, and it worked very well. He was actually quite agile on his feet. And that's the only time he did it. And that really annoyed me because show me more. Like, you showed me you could do it once. In that play, the play was ran away from him, but he scored a quick win. Didn't show off any particular counters. He can do a little bit of wrestling, but, bull rushing. I mean, he's lost a bit of weight. Not as impactful as I'd like to see. The best way that he actually got his production was one-step quickness and trying to get off the ball. Or it's just about getting skinny. In the same way that I got really excited about Skylar Gill-Howard when he got drafted. It's a similar way that they win on the interior, which I thought was interesting for a player of his size. So overall, I didn't grade him before the draft. If I had graded him before the draft, I would have had him as a draftable pick, but only just late 7, maybe a high 7, that sort of range. As Poole rightly put in his article on these guys, he is a prototypical edge in a lot of ways. He's long, big wingspan. There's a little bit of twitchiness there, but there's just quite a lot which is going to hold him back right now. Can he put on a little bit more weight and still add a bit more polish on the pass rush? If he can, there's a way to the roster because we don't have a huge amount of edge guys who are going to make sense. Especially if they go to 3-4, because he could do 3-4 outside linebacker, and he does drop into coverage. And actually, I don't think he looks that bad when he does that. Although if he puts on some weight, maybe that gets worse. So Anyway, boys, I throw it open to you because he's probably the highest profile guy we have on here, at least in terms of consensus ranking, name recognition, that sort of thing. Apart from Altmaier, maybe. Do you think he's got a shot?
Go on, Ash.
Probably not. Even if we do make the rumoured change to a 3-4, which I'm 100% obviously for, even then I still have him as bottom of the depth chart, really, at his position, because I know, obviously read Paul's article and then I know what Eric had him down as his base end in our scheme, supposedly. You've got DJ Wanham just signed to a big free agency contract there. Tyree West, who we've just drafted, who plays that role, and he's more prototypical for it. You've got Lacey, who we've brought back for that role, and then you've got him, and he's a bit smaller. And then even if we do then move him to rush end, he's going to be behind Hutchinson. He's going to be behind Moore. He's probably going to be behind Hasselin and Turner, who have both been in the scheme or similar for a while. And it's him and versus O'Neill, who we'll get into in a bit. There's just too much of a logjam there, even though he's got the prototypical size. It's going to be an uphill battle, even if even then. So he's got to really show out. And even if he does, we saw what happened to Nate Lynn last year. Looked absolutely amazing in the preseason. Disappeared off the face of the earth.
I do wonder whether if Nate Lynn was here this year, he'd have a better chance with what we believe, Ash, is a change of scheme slightly.
Yeah.
But with Lucas, for me, he was absolutely built in the lab to play defensive end. I agree, Matt. He either needs to go one or two ways. He either needs to put a bit of weight back on or lose even more and try to become an out-and-out speed rusher. I don't think he's got that in his bag, personally. So you said obviously everything you read was he was a good edge setter, and I think that's just confirmation bias from other people. They see the 6'5.5", 285 pounds, and they go, he must be able to set an edge. So then when they see it, they note that down. For me, he can do it. I think there are examples where he uses his length really well to set an edge. But that's all he can do is set an edge. In terms of the run game, he does struggle to disengage for me, which is unusual given his his ridiculously long arms, 33.5-inch arms. So I don't know whether I agree. When I watched, so I did grade him before the draft. I had a mid-sixth on him. I didn't see much explosion from him. I didn't see much first step quickness, which is what I like in my edge rushers. He doesn't threaten the outside shoulder anywhere near enough for me. For me, he's a practice squad guy to see if we can get anything out of him, because the foundation is there. Like, these guys don't grow on trees like this. Their foundation is there. Can we add some building blocks to that for him to become an NFL player? And as you say, mate, he's still young, so there's definitely potential there. In my article, I sort of compared this to when we drafted Deshaun Hand. Now I know Deshaun Hand was drafted in the fourth, but they're both very high recruits who had relatively underwhelming college careers. Now, Deshaun Hand worked out well for the year before injuries got hold of him. I think obviously Lucas is a bit further behind. There's a reason he's UDFA, but he's got the size, he's got the power profile. He's just got to use it a bit better. So there's the ceiling for him is arguably the highest amongst this UDFA class. Like, he could be a regular contributor on defense. I just don't think it's happening in a rookie though.
Yeah, I wonder whether it's someone that Hutch could mould, because they're not. If he puts £10 on, they're similar in terms of profile, elite height, weight, arms, wingspan, that sort of thing. In fact, Hutch probably has shorter arms, I would imagine. But
Yeah.
Hutch is such a polished rusher, can do a bit of both, and Lucas is kind of. If you get the best out of him, he'd be on that trajectory. So can he be a sponge at his age and take everything that Hutch can give him? And is Hutch willing to do that? Because I think he could play rush or base end, depending on what you wanted from him, in the best case scenario. But I think you're right. Practice squad seems like the way to go for him to try and develop. Cool.
Overall, I really like the signing though as a UDFA. I wouldn't have been a massive fan if we drafted him, but as a UDFA signing, it's because that ceiling is so high. For me, I'm a big fan of this.
Right. Ash, are you ready with your quarterback?
Yeah. So we mentioned him earlier, and obviously he's the only quarterback we signed in this UDFA class. It's it's not too hard to see that I'm talking about Luke Altmaier, the Illinois QB, 6'1", 210 pounds. He's a 23-year-old senior, 9-inch hands, which isn't the best, but we move. 6.74 RAS with a poor size, obviously 6'1", 210s and not great, but good speed and explosion. No agility testing from him. Probably easy to guess why that is. Spent the first 2 years of his career, so 2021, 2022, at Ole Miss, and then spent the last 3 years at Illinois. In his past season, he had a 78.0 offensive grade from PFF, playing on his 844 snaps. He also did have 2 penalties, both of which were delay of game ones. He had a 74.2 passing grade from PFF as well. He went 244 completions on 365 attempts, which is 66.8% completion rate. Nearly 3,000 yards, 22 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, which gives him an NFL passer rating of 106.4. 12 big-time throws to 14 turnover wherever he plays. So again, not the best, not the worst in both categories. 75.1% adjusted completion rate, because he did have 10 drops from his receivers. So nearly 4% of his throws were drops, which isn't exactly great. He also did have 2 targets and a catch on the for 3 yards, but he also did drop the other target. So, we're not exactly going to come out of here and run the Jameis Winston play with him. He had a 2.8 second time to throw behind Illinois' offensive line, and he did have a 21.5% pressure to sack rate, which is not exactly great for someone who does have decent mobility, as we'll come on to in a bit. He also did have a 71.0 run grade from PFF. It's carrying the ball 75 times for 476 yards, 5 touchdowns, 6 fumbles. So there's where the hand size comes into play a bit there, I think. 6.3 yards per carry, 2.84 of those yards were after contact per attempt, and he did force 12 missed tackles. So he's a bit of his bio. He was a consensus 4-star recruit coming out of high school, an Elite 11 finalist as well. So obviously, those are the top 11 quarterback prospects in each class to go and do like a sort of almost combiney thing. He spent the first 2 years of his career backing up Matt Corral and Jackson Dart at Ole Miss. He did make 9 appearances and he did throw 55 passes for 28 completions and 317 yards. Of course, then he spent 2 years buried there, transferred to actually get a starting job going to Illinois. His first year starting there, he threw for 1,883 yards and 13 touchdowns in 9 games before head injury ended that season early. The next year, bounced back, 2,717 passing yards, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 10-3 record for the team, which tied the program single season wins mark. And he led the nation that year with 3 game-winning touchdown throws within the final 2 minutes or overtime. The most famous of which was to Pat Bryant, which probably got him drafted higher than he was supposed to. He was projected to go before that, really elevated him up the boards. This past season, in this final and senior season, 67.4% completion rate, moving through all the stuff. Music City Bowl MVP after leading Illinois to win over 23 ranked Tennessee, who we've just discussed. And he finished his career at Illinois holding the program record in completion percentage while ranking second in touchdown passes and 5th in passing yards. So this someone been in 2 systems, one of which has produced NFL QBs before. Obviously, Matt Corral and Jackson Dart both have been in the league. Dart sticking around a bit, but the scheme isn't the best for QBs. They do have a bit of transition time. At Illinois, he did run a bit more of a pro-style offense, which is obviously useful for his transition here. In Lance Zierlein's bio for him on NFL.com, says he's got experience in using pro passing concepts and shows decent eye discipline and patience to give the player a chance. So one of these is where he is staring down the safety on play action and then he's able to hit the intermediate routes with perfect timing. Tell me if that sounds familiar. Throws with adequate anticipation in zone windows, but a slower operation time and a lack of arm talent hurts his chances of beating tight man coverage. And edge pressure sneaks up on him. He still hasn't learned how to avoid sacks often enough for someone who has been a 3-year starter. That's all according to Zierlein. So pros, at least for the Lions, and why I can see why they liked him. 3-year starter and a team captain. We know we like our multi-year stars. We know we like our team captains. So that was a big tick for him on our list. Plenty of experience in pro passing concepts. Big tick for us. Patient to wait out the route development. Big tick. Throws with adequate timing and into intermediate windows, as I just mentioned. The Jared Goff throws. Good eye manipulation to move zone defenders away from his target. Keeps eyes alive and search for a completion while scrambling. All stuff that I know the team will like because that's what we expect in our offense. That's definitely more of the Jared Goff style than, the Hendon Hooker point and shoot stuff that he did at Tennessee. Much more of a transferable skill to what we run. So if we do have to go to Altmaier for any reason, we don't have to adjust the scheme as much as we would have done for a Hendon Hooker for another QB. We can plug him in, simplify the concepts a bit, and he can at least grit it out to the end of the game, and then we go from there. But the negatives, below average size, arm talent, and drive velocity. So, as we mentioned before, doesn't have a good NFL size, according to Raz, and that translates as well. And the arm talent is okay, but once you start getting, at least to get the one game of him that I watched, once you start getting past 40 yards, you are starting to, he does start have to use a bit of his body to get there, and you are losing a bit of the accuracy. So, again, perhaps if we do have to go to Altmaier, JMO is going more on those crossing routes. We're not really throwing downfield too much. Low arm slot makes him susceptible to batted passes. Sounds very much like Goff last year as well. Something that hopefully Brunel can work with. But again, that's something that is a bit of a downtime. The accuracy issues as well, as I mentioned, downfield as well, can be tied to lack of discipline with footwork. He is someone that is very much going to have to, do that drill that you've seen all the training camps where the QBs are stepping around the little pads on the floor as if they're in the pocket and making sure their footwork's right with the throw. He's definitely going to have to do a lot of that. And then when it comes to pressure, be it real or simulated pressure looks, he just get absolutely flustered, which leads to him taking sacks or making bad plays. That's something that we'll definitely need working on. You would have hoped, as I say, 3-year starter, you would have learned how to deal with that, but it's still an issue. So Altmaier, I did have a sort of 7th round grade on him when I watched him a couple of weeks ago before the draft. So for us to get him as a priority free agent, in inverted commas, I'm happy with. He's someone that you can at least stick on the practice squad, and he's got enough tools there that you might be able to work something out where he could be a mid-level backup QB. But we know, even though we came up with the free QB rule, I don't expect him to make the 53. He can probably sit there on the practice squad and develop, hopefully, into something. But I'm not pinning all my hopes, Blue Cortmire being the savior of the franchise if Jared Goff goes down. He's very much right. You just run a simplified scheme. We'll make it to the draft, and we'll see what happens there.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's a great breakdown, Ash. What I like about Altmaier is, one, the fit with this offense, and two, he knows his limitations. Ash pointed them out very well there. He's not a great arm. He's slightly undersized. Yes, he can move, but no one's going to threaten to call him dual threat. But he knows that, and he adapts his game to that. And the offense at Illinois was adapted to him. So there's certainly some upside there. Like his ceiling's limited because of the limitations Ash talked about. He's probably back up at best for him throughout his career. I can see him making the practice squad and being elevated as that emergency third quarterback for us on game days. But ultimately, I hope we never see him actually on the field unless it's clean up duties and we've decided to elevate him above Bridgewater. But I can't see that happening. But I mean, ultimately, over the last 2 years where he was settled in as the starter at Illinois, 44 touchdowns, 11 picks, 4-1 ratio. I'll take that any day. He looks after the ball. He moves it relatively efficiently. But yeah, his ceiling's capped.
Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I think that this is basically David Blau 2.0.
Good shout.
He's going to be limited. He's going to be a backup. He's probably not going to beat out Teddy Bridgewater. But if in year 2 he comes off of the practice squad because Teddy retires or something and he becomes QB2, he's probably not the worst QB2 in the league. But he's probably not far away from being. Yeah, if ever he gets threatened because he's not winning with his intelligence, he's probably going to run into trouble. And that's the biggest concern for me. But the thing is, this offense is predicated on being smart. And he's got that. So, I think there's something to work with. And I think if he had to come in an emergency, if Teddy was injured and Goff went down for a series or something, I think he'd be fine. So that's the best thing I can say about him. But, he does take some terrible hits. Like, I know that's probably just Illinois putting him in bad positions, but he has to throw the ball away a bit more than he does. That's one thing that I'd love to see from him a bit more, is just living to fight another day. All right. We're on to our next one, and Paul, we're coming back to you for Melvin Priestley.
Yeah, so Melvin Priestley, senior out of Illinois. Talking about them before. So he spent 2 years playing left tackle at Grambling State before he moved to become Altmaier's protector on the right-hand side at Illinois. Despite those 4 years at tackle, this guy's a guard. He's not even 6'3", 317 pounds. He was listed at his pro day, even though he's listed during the season at 305. So a weight increase or weight gain is interesting. Makes me think the move inside something he's aware of. So look, I'd heard of Priestley. I hadn't watched him. So I went back and watched him after we signed him. I was quite impressed overall, especially in the run game. I can see why the Lions like him. Like, he moves people, especially when he down blocks in the run game. He gets on someone's hip, and causes displacement. They run behind him a lot at Illinois. But athletically, he's very limited. So at his pro day, and bear in mind these are pro day numbers, 5'5", 40, a 7'8" broad, and a 24-inch vertical, all would have been last, considerably last, at the combine. So honestly, how he survived the tackle playing for Illinois, I don't know. But he managed it. Like his feet didn't look slow. Yeah, he gave up some stuff around the outside shoulder, but I've seen worse tackles, if I'm honest. But he's clearly a guard. So things I really liked about him, he's strong as fuck, really good anchor. And I said he down blocks really well. Um, in the run game, there are occasions where he gets a bit too aggressive in the run game, gets out over his toes, and can lose his balance. Uh, I watched him and I thought, this guy could crack the roster, and then I remembered how many interior offensive linemen we've signed or acquired this off season, and ultimately, I think even the practice squad's going to be an issue for him. But there's something there. It's the ceiling because of that athletic inability. I think I'm more athletic than that, if I'm honest. I'm sitting there drinking whiskey. So
Yeah, you're not quite 305 pounds though.
I don't know. I put some away this weekend, mate. I'm not sure. I'm not far off it. No, that's a very fair point. I'm not 305 pounds, but because of that athletic ability, his ceiling's limited. He's fine in the phone booth, but anytime someone crosses his face, this is me projecting playing as a guard, I think he would struggle to redirect. But he's one to keep an eye on in training camp and the preseason. But the likelihood of 53 is extremely low. And as I said, with the number of guards and centers we've signed this year, I think even the practice squad could be a long shot for him.
Anything from you, Ash?
Yeah, I have to agree. Like, again, I've got my own depth chart up, and yeah, when we've got 11 interior offensive linemen, yeah, it is the 11th. Like, it's for him versus Mason Miller, who people might remember from last year, the NDSU guy that was a right tackle. We've had to move him to guard. It's him. He's battling him for the practice squad because, yeah, you've got this the three left guards. I think are either going to make the 53 on the practice squad in Mahogany, Fraser, and Barch. You've got Rat, and then you've got Sorsdal, Mason Miller, and Priestley, all battling it maybe for that other practice squad spot. It's going to be so tough for Priestley. He's got to show out in training camp, but yeah, weirdly, I would not be surprised if come the start of training camp, the team isn't happy and they cut one of these, probably Sorsdal, and bring in another guy who's a bit more of a veteran just to provide a bit more competition there because they've got blood back going on at left guard right now. And as much as Rat was a warrior last year, played the most offensive snaps of any player last year. I know he's had some injury issues in college, so having someone I can trust there to play at right guard would be useful. I hope it'd be Priestley, but would not be surprised if it's someone else come snap one against whoever that is.
They've got Scruggs as well, who can cover both guard spots.
True,
Not that he played particularly well there, but it's just an absolute bloodbath. His best chance is if they see Fraser as a tackle now, and therefore they're not going to consider him at guard at all. I doubt that, but yeah, as I say, I quite like him, but I don't see a route to the roster.
All right. I'm going to be next up with a player who I will butcher the name of, and I apologise in advance. Nose tackle Aiden Kinaina. I'll go with it.
That's not bad. So I looked at the pronunciation, and I still couldn't get it. I was sitting in my office at work just saying like syllables out loud, and every time I said it, it was something different.
Kinaina,
and I was reading it.
I reckon something like that. The more I look at it,
Kinaina, Naina. That's what
we could say this over and over again, and people will sound like they're going mad.
That's gonna get clipped for the new intro, isn't it?
Don't tempt me.
But yeah, sorry, mate. Carry on.
No. I'm sure Ash will interrupt with the correct pronunciation in a minute. This is the guy that's been guaranteed $300,000, so he's probably the person most of interest from the Lions, at least publicly. A lot of the deals actually haven't been revealed in terms of how much guaranteed they've got, but this one is one of the highest guaranteed deals that the Lions have ever handed out under this regime for UDFAs, so they like him. He was born in February 2002, so he just turned 24 years old before the draft, so a slightly older prospect. He's a redshirt super senior, so he's been in college about as long as you can possibly do, and he tried for one more season, mind you. He's 6'3" and 1/8 and 321 pounds. PFF grade this most recent season of 76.9, but he's had grades of, well, he's had 2 years as starter, 79 last year with Cal as well. He started his college career at Notre Dame, and he played there for 4 seasons, and when I say played, I mean that very loosely. He played less than 41 snaps each of his 4 seasons. Transferred to Cal for 2 years, played 26 games there, and was instantly a starting level guy. 425 snaps in year 1, 544 in year 2 on defense. So a lot more play. And in that time, he had 101 tackles, 5 TFLs, 2.5 sacks, and a pass defended at defensive tackle. I mean, 50-odd tackles a year from defensive tackle is very, very impressive numbers. So he's a fairly prolific guy when it comes to getting people down. And, 5 TFLs is not bad, especially with someone of his size. You wouldn't be expecting someone like him to get into the backfield particularly much. In terms of RAS, poor speed, good agility, okay explosion, good size. Amounts to a 5.64. Kind of slightly shorter arms with 32 and 1/8 and 9 1/4 hand size. So there's just things out there where you'd hope for a little bit more. 1.83 10-yard split does not jump off the page. He's pretty pedestrian out the blocks, unfortunately. I watched 2 games of his versus UNC in week 8, which was a nail-biting victory for Cal. And then Duke in week 6, which was was not a great game. Overall, he's a very big man. Obviously, 6'3", 321 pounds. It does take a lot to move him. He does have a good anchor. Even versus double teams, he takes some moving. But he's not that strong, which is quite worrying at his size. Did 24 on the bench, which is an average figure for defensive tackles. He's 321 pounds. He ain't the average defensive tackle. You want to be seeing him put up a bit more on the bench. And that really shows up on his tape. He does not win reps. He doesn't. He doesn't lose reps, really. They're just a wash. When he's there, he eats space. That's basically it. Inconsistent pad level may show up against NFL talent, so while he wasn't moved because he's got a good anchor, you put someone opposite him, a tackle who's up 340 pounds, or a centre, a bit of a stronger, bigger centre, I think he could get pushed off the ball potentially, despite what I just said. When you're looking at what the pro projection's going to be, just because he wasn't pushed around at college, it's not a great example of what can happen, I don't think. Shows ability to disengage from blocks, and he has good tackling form. He's a very, very good tackler, actually, I think. So people don't get past him. When he sees the players going behind him, he can get out and stop people. He does have a fairly good motor. So there's something to say about what he can do in the run game. Like I said, there's a lot of nose tackles who don't do anything pass rush-wise. I don't think that's a stick to beat them with, especially if we are moving to a 3-4. You do want a nose who can just hold up and maybe take on a double team and not lose. So there's some value here. Versus the pass, he actually gets off the ball fairly well for someone who's athletic as he is. There are no pass rush moves at all. Kind of like Anthony Lucas in a way. That's the only way. Slow to get up to speed, lacks explosion. One good thing is he does know where the passing lanes are, and he does get his hands up into them. So I think if he does play a bit, you'll see the odd tip ball because he's in the way. He's not a small guy, as I've kind of alluded to, but the arms, while they're not big, are not like hugely small, and he's got a good nose for that. So I see some value there. And I mean, the guys I watch the games against, I mean, Duke obviously have a pretty good offensive line, generally speaking, year to year. They seem to develop NFL talent. And he wasn't losing even then. Now, Duke did kind of blow them away in the end, but never mind. So suffice it to say, we're not particularly strong in the nose tackle area. Poole just mentioned it before that Chris Smith might be the number 2. I think that Keen Aina might be a threat to Chris Smith. I mean, Chris Smith isn't a threat to anyone. Let's put it that way. He was on the practice squad last year. So nose tackle 2 is absolutely up for grabs. He could do it. He's not providing anything particularly fancy, but I would have graded him as a mid to low 7. I do think he's potentially a draftable prospect, because if you want a guy like this, he's here and ready for you. He's played enough, and he's fairly stout. He's going to have an interesting professional career, and by that I mean it could be quite short if he just washes out the league, but if he can stand the punishment and just sit there, that some people will like it. Anyone got anything on Kinaina?
Yeah, I don't think I'm quite as optimistic as you, Matt, and you're not particularly optimistic. I also watched the Duke game. I also watched the Boston College game, and one of my notes here is that I think he's inconsistent against double teams. There's times where he takes them on really well, absorbs the impact, and then manages to swim through them to get into the backfield. Now, often it's too late, but as a nose tackle, that's going to be the case. But you're disrupting what the offensive line wants to do. There's other times I saw him get moved 4 or 5 yards back, which concerns me. I chose Duke and Boston College because they produce NFL offensive linemen. And I think he struggled, as you say, no pass rush. I'm not going to knock him for that necessarily, but there just is none. The fact that he wanted to go back to college was 7th year. Again, like, I don't know if it concerns me. I don't know if that's the right word. Like, he obviously knows his limitations. He knows maybe his ceiling isn't an NFL player. But then we've given him 300 grand. So I'm a bit confused by this, if I'm honest.
I mean, 300 grand is more than what a practice squad player gets for a season. I think that's really quite interesting. I mean, he's going to pick that up, and then he'll probably get a practice squad salary as well. $500,000 for the year. It's not too bad.
No, hey, good for him. And I hope he proves me wrong. But I don't see much there with him at all, because he's a slightly taller nose tackle at just over 6'3".
Mm-hmm.
He often can lose the leverage battle as well, and get upright, and that is normally when he gets walked backwards. Against one-on-one blockers, yeah, he's fine. He can hold his own. But I want my nose to be able to absorb double teams the way Tyleek can. I don't mind if you swim through them or not, but absorb them. Don't let them get off you. Don't let one of them peel off to the second level. And there's times where he doesn't do that. Then they've guaranteed him money, so they obviously see something that I don't, which is fine. But we'll see. As you said, Matt, the depth at nose tackle is non-existent. If Chris Smith's your number 2, you're in trouble.
Any thoughts, Ash?
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, again, got my depth chart. He's currently number 5 on there. You got Tyler, you said Chris Smith, Miles Adams, who's kind of flexible, but he's probably best at the nose. And then you've got Freeland, our good friend, and I've got the pronunciation up. I've even listened to him speak it at the media pronunciation, so I could get it right. Ki Aina. So you basically have to repeat yourself. So it's Ki Aina, which is fun. But yeah, I agree. Like, I have seen little bits of him, because obviously, so a certain team has played Cal before when he's been playing there. It is the height for me, the leverage battle. Like, I want my and maybe it's just me, because this is the kind of nose tackle like. I want my nose tackles to be like Poona Ford, just a big slab of just fucking shit that you can't get past.
Yeah, 6'2" is too tall. Like, yeah. So 6'3", exactly. I do worry about that a little bit.
Exactly. I just want somebody who can put there. But yeah, I could, as you said, I would not be surprised if come week 1 he is the backup nose tackle because Chris Smith's been there, done that, and it's actually got a connection to Keenan because
They would have crossed over at Notre Dame, wouldn't they?
Notre Dame, exactly, yeah, and then so there's a little bit of connection there that maybe can help. Slide in, but yeah, it's a lot of veteran guys who've just been around the practice squad, bombing the roster anyway. So if you can show a bit on special teams, like imagine it might not work for him on defense, but a 6'3" kind of guy with his weight, imagine him on the field block unit, just occupying some space there and open it up for, I don't know, who's someone that I could say, open it up for, say, Christian Isian, if he's on that one, to leap over him and block the kick. I'm there for that.
Fucking hell, Christian Isian's jumping over 6'3" geezer. He's wasted his talent, he has.
You know what I mean? Like where they're trying to do it, and he's like,
exactly what you mean. I'm just making an awful attempt at trying to be funny, Ash.
Join the club.
It's the best thing about being a dad is I can legally make dad jokes.
Well, lock me up then, because
All right, time to move on to the next one. And Ash, you are up with Colonel O'Neill. That's what I'm calling him now. Sorry.
See, no, I was so lost then. See, fine. I was about to make a reference I think more people will get. I was going to go, we're about to discuss someone that makes a character of the in-betweeners disappointed because it's all about O'Neill.
Wow. Here was me thinking that it was just going to be about a fucking Irish bar.
Right, let's end the show.
No, I've got to get...
Colonel O'Neill's much better, and it's an American show.
Nothing.
He was MacGyver, for goodness sake. Anyway.
I know he was. I love MacGyver.
Didn't the Americans try and make an in-betweeners?
They did, and it was horrific.
I can
Finally,
imagine.
we get our own back with Saturday Night Live UK. It's had some good moments, like it pissing off Trump's wife, but yeah, it's not as good as the OJ. And I'm not just saying that because my Princess Olivia was on there.
Anyway,
right, the player. Let's go.
Eric O'Neill, the Rutgers edge, 6'2", 247 pounds senior, 31-inch arms. Didn't get a wingspan from him, unfortunately. 6.73 RAS, poor size, okay to good everywhere else. Has had a storied college career, played his first 3 years of his career at Long Island University. In 2024, transferred to James Madison, and in 2025, transferred to Rutgers in the Big Ten. This past season, a 74.5 defensive grade, 1 penalty on 471 snaps. 261 of those were in pass rushing, 208 were run defense, and 2 in coverage. He had a 71.6 pass rushing grade, 41 pressures, which were 4 sacks going to BFFs. Obviously, some of those might be half sacks, but the count as 4 ones on PFF. 10 hits and 27 hurries. He also had a 69.5 run defense grade with 24 run stops. His weakness, though, is his tackling, 51.3 tackle grade, 26 solo tackles, 5 assisted. But he did miss 9 of his further attempts, which is a near 23% miss rate. Not exactly great from your edge. 57.5 coverage grade as well. He was targeted once, did not allow completion, and he also did the ball down at the line. He spent most of his time outside the tackle, so 379 of his snaps this season came outside the tackle, 64 over the tackle, and then 27 in the B gap. So as I referred to before, he did start off his college career at Long Island University. He grew up on Staten Island, and he was a 2-sport athlete in high school, one of them obviously being football, the other one being basketball. He was a 2-star prospect and only saw 3 games action as a true freshman. But in the sophomore year at Long Island, he absolutely exploded. 51 tackles, 21 of them for loss, 10 sacks. He won FCS Freshman All-American Award honors, was the NEC Defensive Rookie of the Year, was a finalist for the Jerry Rice Award as well, which is given to the top freshman in FCS football. In his junior year, 80 tackles, 23.5 for loss, was a finalist for the Buck Buchanan Award, which goes to the top defensive player in the FCS. He was the NEC Defensive Player of the Year, and he had multiple All-American selections as well. And then he transferred up to, as I said, to JMU. 52 tackles, 18.5 for loss, 13 sacks across 13 games. Was first team All-Sun Belt. Was a group of 5 All-American by Hero Sports, and he ranked 5th nationally for sacks per game. absolutely took the step up to competition, step up in competition. Well, James Maddison, then as we've referred to before, did have a dip in performance this past season, perhaps with the use of him in Rutgers. That was perhaps for him finding his level for only 1 year there, so didn't really get settled to that level of competition. But there's stuff to be there, as shown by his performance, even at James Maddison. Like 5th in the nation for sacks is pretty outstanding. So again, looking at Zerline's blurb for him, because, yeah, Zerline knows what he's talking about most of the time. A high motor edge defender with terrific play strength, uses efficient handwork in tight quarters to work around blocks to point attack, but lacks range in pursuit. As a pass rusher, he relies on effort and strength, with room for growth in his rush plan and execution. His lack of explosiveness and length caps his overall rush potential, though. He projects as a viable backup outside linebacker in an odd front scheme and offers core special teams value. So there's another little tick into the potential move to 3-4%, perhaps. So that's what Zerline said. Looking at the one game that I managed to watch of him, agree with the plays with high effort on every snap. His hands are good. Like, he can unlock the rush angles, but as we kind of mentioned, he doesn't really have a pass rush plan. So if his hands don't win, he's probably not winning the rep. He does possess lower body drive to push through sort of tackles holding the edge and into the pocket. He fights hard to stay tight to the rush arc when redirected to the top. So if someone tries to like push him around, he tries to make sure he's on his route. And he does have good match zone steps for offensive linemen. However, as I said, doesn't have much of a pass rush plan. Does need to set up his rush moves with better purpose as part of that. So instead of just rely on the hands, do some other moves. He's one speed pass rush as well. Does lack the instinctive counter when stalled. Again, pass rush plan doesn't work. He's there. He can be driven off the mark and out of the picture by sort of ankle blocks from the tight end coming in. Just tease him unaware because of his light size. Again, it's under 250 pounds. Does move him out of the way. And he lacks the pursuit speed to close from the backside or to just squeeze down on the with his play side corners to really hold an edge. So again, buried at the bottom of the depth chart. He can maybe, if he can, if he works a bit on the coverage. As I said, he did get used there a bit, but not exactly great. He might be able to move over to Sam and push Nowaski off the roster, especially with his special teams value. But that's probably a next year thing. He's probably practice squad at best, developed the sort of off-ball instincts with him because he's not, as I said, he's really done 2 snaps in coverage this season. And maybe you've got a project there. Or if we are moving to 3-4, then sit on the practice squad. And if we need him because of some injuries, you can put him there. But again, not someone exactly I'm screaming for the top of my lungs about, saying, yeah, he definitely needs to make the roster. He could work out to be something, but he's going to take at least a year to at least get used to the level of competition, work out how to have a pass rush plan, and maybe work on the coverage if we are moving to our front, or if he wants to be a Sam, where perhaps his frame works best in our scheme.
Oh,
Yeah, it's always nice when you do this as a hobby and your notes match up nearly perfectly with someone like Lance Zerline.
Yeah.
My notes on his pass rush here are tenacious, relentless, but lacks a plan. So I'll take that. Yeah, the other note I've got on him against the run, he can set an edge, but one of the games I watched, he was playing against Isaiah World, so we all know my thoughts on him. But what I thought, he was very disciplined on option plays, where the quarterback's either going to keep it himself or hand it off to the running back. He sets that sort of edge very well, forcing the quarterback to hand it off. But yeah, like for me, practice squad, maybe. I don't know if there's room for both him and Lucas on the practice squad.
what,
I'm not that high on Eric O'Neill.
what I found remarkable just kind of watching his highlight reel is in this most recent season at Rutgers, he only had, 3.5, 4 sacks or so.
2.5, I think, yeah.
What's remarkable watching it is how many of them were either coming off the back of someone running a stunt for him, or it being the result of a blitz and he's the one who comes unblocked. Now, I know that happens, but if those are the only sacks you're getting, I think it accounted for 3 halves of a sack or 1 and 2 halves. So the majority of his sack production was the offense screwing up rather than anything else. You know, it didn't come off anything particularly good that he was doing. Not that sack production is everything, and you know he's had a pretty good college career by all accounts, really, especially with the moves up and not looking out of place. But you know, everything you're saying is kind of worrying, really, in the same way that him and Lucas might be at a sort of a similar spot. It feels like Eric O'Neill's kind of capped, whereas Lucas is the person being holding himself back. So at this sort of level, you've kind of got to take a shot on the upside, right? So it feels like Lucas has got the inner track to beat O'Neill if there is going to be an edge on the practice squad.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, O'Neill has sacked the quarterback 31 times in his college career. Like, that's nothing to be sniffed at. Like, getting to the quarterback is like can become a habit. But I don't know what version of him you're getting. You're getting the 13 sack guy at JMU, or you're getting the 2.5 sack guy at Rutgers. Rutgers they will be playing against better opposition more often. So you've got to lean towards that one. And as you say, Matt, he doesn't naturally threaten the outside shoulder of the tackle much. He was used on stunts and things a lot. There's a player there. I just don't know if it's here.
Mr. Fitzpatrick is here. How are you doing, Ant?
Too bad. Hope everyone's well.
Did you get to watch Eric O'Neill at all? You have any thoughts on him?
Watched him quite a bit over the years. Intriguing prospect for us to have on the roster, really. One of those guys who's worked his way up through the system, has been uber productive for the vast majority of it, and you know he's had to do things the hard way. And you know I like what he's about, and you know as I say, for the most part, been very productive. But he's had to deal with 3 consecutive years of going up against bigger, better opposition and adapting, and for the most part, he's done incredibly well with it. So, wasn't the easiest team to play on this year. Not exactly the best place to go and be able to thrive on that Rutgers D line, but no, I think he's definitely good enough. He's got some intrigue to him. He's got a lot of production. He knows how to get to a QB. He knows how to get home. He knows how to get in the backfield as well. The tackles for loss of nearly 19 last year to go with 13 sacks. You know, this is a guy who can make plays in the backfield and, has always been able to do that. So I think he's certainly going to work his bollocks off to get on this roster. And, I think, we'll probably not see much from him this year, but if he hangs around and they keep him on the practice squad, I think, you will see him in due time. I think he's got the upside to be able to do that. Certainly, he's the one I'd take out of both the edges on this roster going forward. On the practice squad at the UDFAs we've got. For me, there's more to him. So yeah, he's intriguing. He's a real wild card for sure. Like I say, he'll not break the roster this year, but potentially in 12 months' time, if all goes well and injuries, whatever, he gets an opportunity. Who knows? He might surprise you.
I can see this coaching staff absolutely loving him because he is going to come in and work his bollocks off, do everything that's asked of him from day one. I just think that the talent is capped.
It's odd. See, he's a working man, and Detroit likes a working man, whereas
Absolutely.
someone like Anthony Lucas had God-given talent and squandered it and was lazy and didn't make the most of his opportunities and had a much better school to work at, had much better talent to work at. I don't like those guys. It's very rare that 5 stars, I think he was 5 or he was a high 4 at least,
he was
who don't
high
do
4 for someone else, and he was a 5-star
Yeah.
by 24/7.
It was
so,
Tamu.
yeah.
It's another one of these Tamu ones, but at the end of the day, you've had the
Sorry,
opportunity
what team's
to
that?
thrive. I don't give a fuck. I'm calling it Tamu. I adjust enough of my language for the Americans. They're going to have to give me one thing, and it's Tamu. So like it or loathe it, as they say.
We already have someone talking about the fact that we've said schedule and not schedule as well. There we go.
Let's
Schedule with that K in it? Yeah. Schedule. Yeah.
Let's be clear. It's our fucking language. We'll do whatever we want.
It's an English dialect.
And there go all our viewers.
That's what it is. Yeah, it's an English dialect. That's what it is.
I'm joking.
But regardless of it, he's the pampered rich kid who's had everything given to him and done nothing with it. I will take a working man over that every day. O'Neill's had to go up through the FCS and then the Group of Five and then up to the Power Five, and on a shitty D line with no help there. So it's. Funny if you could combine Lucas's athletic traits with O'Neill's workmanship and his production, there'd be a roster edge there for sure. Unfortunately, you can't splice people together like that. It is illegal and frowned upon in most popular in most popular motion pictures and whatnot. So yeah, we can't do that.
I'm surprised you're so high on Lucas's athletic traits, because I was just talking about the fact that I think he's not functional athletically, really, to some great extent. He had to drop a lot of weight to get any sort of production through speed rushing, but he's not that good at it, and he's lost his anchor. Yeah. Anyway, we've obviously talked quite a lot about players that you just haven't been here for in the early part of the show, so I didn't know whether you wanted to have a say at all on Kinselman, Lucas, Altmaier, Priestley, or Keane. How do you say it, Ash?
Kenai.
That.
I'm pretty sure that was different to what you said earlier.
I mean, you got
the sudden urge to think, McDonald had a farm.
Yeah, exactly.
Kenai.
Just call him Old McDonald, and there you go.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. I feel embarrassed. I literally listened to him repeating it over and over for the Cal Media thing just to get it in my head. And
Go on then. We need some payoff to this now. You've got to do it. You're under pressure now. We're all watching. Well, not now. You're not done it for me. So
I'm not a dancing monkey. You got to take me to dinner first.
Dance, boy, dance. Well, that's your punishment for Tottenham the other day. You letting the entire country down.
You had to bring it up, even though I brought it up earlier.
It's disgraceful.
Right.
So
yeah. Anyway.
What guys that have been mentioned?
Yeah.
Sorry, who was it again? Who have you mentioned?
Let's go from the top. Kinselman, Tennessee tight end.
Yeah, I've not watched much of him, so I can't really add out there.
So you've talked about Lucas already, so I'll move on from that. You weren't the biggest Altmaier fan in the world.
No, after Drew Alley, he's probably the least clutch quarterback in existence. Just shrunk in every major game he ever played, and was just a massive disappointment. Like that Illinois program this year. Yeah, the turnover numbers are all right, and the overall stats are pretty good, but he's just not a big game player, and just. Yeah, there's no clutch gene in there, and when there's no clutch gene in there, quarterback's got no chance at any level, so he's going to linger around for a bit, but I don't think he's threatening anything, really. Certainly not someone I'd like as QB3 developing for the future. I think there are better options out there than him.
And then Melvin Priestley from the same team, right tackle, probably kick inside.
I know absolutely nothing about him, so...
And then everyone's favourite Cal defensive tackle that we were trying to pronounce.
And I don't know much about him either, so we did pick some right ones in this one.
We did. Right.
Keina.
Okay, fine. Thanks.
By the way, I said it, Matt, and you said something completely different.
Keina. Yeah, I don't know.
That's better.
It just sounds like you're impersonating an ambulance.
Keina. Yeah, it's not that off. Anyway, and I'm going to be calling on you for Rucker in just a second, but we've got one question in the chat I'm just going to come to. It's a pretty quick one, which is, would you rather have Tyree West, or would you have rather drafted Dallin Bentley? It's just a quick question from Attila.
West.
I mean, it's tricky for me. Like I had Bentley just above West on my board, so by that logic, I'd say West. But if you give me the option of West and Kittelman, who I obviously am higher on than most, or Bentley and I don't know Lucas as our other edge, different players to be fair, then I'd definitely go for West and Kittelman. I'm sneaky high on Tyree West. But yeah, I Bentley higher, so in a bubble, Bentley.
And
I'd much rather have Dallin Bentley. I think Tyre West's completely pointless. So, yeah, no, I'd much rather take the tight end. To be fair,
Oh, Ant, get off the fence, mate.
you know me, I'm complete. You know, I'm captain neutral. Me, I never have opinions one way or the other.
so
So
you're not a hateful
no,
man.
I'm not. No, I'm an honest man. That's what I am. I am an honest man.
We're gonna make you a T-shirt that says "I'm not a hateful man."
But yeah,
I'm going to make it
I
for
actually
sure.
quite want. I put it on a jumper like this, and that'd be me. That'll be it. I should have a list of all the players I've hated on my time on my back as well. I could just like add them like tattoos.
Finally, a rival to that Browns QB jersey.
I think the Browns have got more QBs than I've ever had player hates in my life, and that's a long list. So
Well,
you know,
The Ravens are getting there. I don't know if you saw Skylar Thompson
5
signing
QBs.
there as well. They got 5. Yeah, ridiculous.
what was funny to me is Skylar Thompson is now considered a veteran.
Yeah,
It's
that
like-
made me laugh. as
It's
well.
like he's a veteran in that he's been around the league a while. He's not a veteran quarterback. He's never been a starting quarterback, let alone can be classified as just veteran is your years of service in the league, whether you've played or not. He does not deserve to be called a veteran.
No, I saw that and thought exactly the same, mate.
I remember standing for him in his draft class.
Yeah, you were big on him.
Skylar, oh, back at Kansas State, he was fun, but
Yeah.
just he just was never gonna be. But yeah, he's not a veteran at all.
All right. Are you ready for Deshaun Rucker?
I've got my Hunter stuff. Where's my Rucker stuff?
Do you want to do the other way round?
Yeah, if you would, I've got my Hunter note. I mean, to be honest, I've must have reread this about 50 times already. People fed up with it, but you know, it's a UDFA show, so it is what it is.
Okay, let's do it.
Right, yeah, so anyone who knows me at all will know my favourite UDFA, Eric Hunter, linebacker out of the Morgan State Bears. Been wanting him on this team for a very long time. E40, as he is known, 6'4", 220 pounds of bear linebacker. He played 45 games in college for Morgan State, 298 total tackles, 35 for a loss, 10.5 sacks, 3 interceptions, 12 passes defended, and 7 forced fumbles. Multiple time team captain, defensive leader, like of the whole thing. He's been all MEAC, FCS All American, HBCU All American, just about any sort of accolade he can get. He has got, and I've been very steadfast in my belief he's going to make this roster from day one. And there's a few real reasons behind that. The leadership, as I've mentioned again very extensively in the past, is just one of the big selling points about him. Lions like guys who've been leaders, who lead from front. 'Cause generally, they're the hardest workers. They're the ones who are going to work their way onto the bottom of a roster when no one gives them much hope of doing so, i.e. Malcolm and guys like that back in the day. But yeah, he's been a bear for life. Resisted every temptation to move away in the period of NIL which now exists. Not many players do that, and it's important for HBCU football players because the vast majority of them who succeed in the league are lifers at their programs who don't transfer away because they get to keep the limelight the whole time and they don't get lost on depth charts or in the FBS. But you know, it was the only school that gave him an offer at that level coming out of high school, and he repaid that for them over the course of 5 years. Missed a bit of 24 through injury, hence why he was in this year, or he'd have been in last year. But as I say, showed complete and utter loyalty to that program and a leader first mentality that, you know, you don't transfer away, you stay here, you fight for your spot as one of the most integral parts of this team's as well, and the team captain. Still a core special teamer this year. All 6 phases he plays on special teams, which is going to do him extremely well when it comes to getting on this roster, because you're going to make it as a special teamer. You're going to be fighting against those special teams linebackers. So extensive experience in that regard. But as I say, doing it when he's one of the most important players on that team, setting the example for everybody else to follow. It shows you the kind of leader that he is and what he brings to the table, and nothing, absolutely nothing, is beneath him. You've got the personality side of him as well. There are absolutely no flags, red flags whatsoever when it comes to him. He lives and breathes football. He's shown a relentless desire to improve his time in college, specifically at his height and what he brings in coverage. As I mentioned, you've got 12 PBUs there, you've got 3 interceptions, you've had increasing productivity in that part of his game, and he doesn't care for empty awards, for preseason awards, anything like that. He's you know, all about the game and all about taking on what is in front of him. And as I say, it's now time for him to look after himself. He's not just representing Morgan State when it comes to the NFL, he's representing HBCU football in general. There's the big argument around it at the minute that no guys are getting drafted. They're all having to work their way up through undrafted free agency and training camp invites and bits like that. And more of them are succeeding, and still they're not getting drafted. And when you listen to him speak, he's incredibly passionate about this. He has a bee in his bonnet, not just as a player, but also for the part of football that he represents. And he's not just going to be happy to be there. Like, he's here to ball. He's here to play this year. He's not here just to make up the numbers. Outside of football, he does physical therapy work for people with disabilities, Samaritans. He has done elementary school mentoring, kind of just got every single flag you want as a great person and a player who absolutely adores football. As a player, he's incredibly instinctive. He's got an electric trigger, especially when it comes to playing against the run. Superb A-gap blitzer from the linebacker position, which is something maybe we've lacked in years gone past, like a proper blitzing type. And at his, again, size, his weight, he's got great range, not just going sideline to sideline, tracking, receiving targets, but as I say, making those tackles in the backfield, exploiting gaps in the defensive line, and helping with the pass rush. And when he gets home, his tackling is pretty good for the most part as well. He's got long arms. He's got a great reach, so the ability to get players first, land the first hit, not get tied up on blocks. You can see that he uses those arms to his advantage. And as I say, he's just got a great IQ for the game, which gives him serious range. He's not going to run a 4.3 when it comes to his 40s, but linebackers who are quick and instinctive put themselves into positions to succeed, and it makes them appear faster than they are. But, he can cover as much as you need him to. In terms of the things you're going to say that are going to be the issues, obviously the level of football, staying loyal to the program is one thing, but you have played HBCU football your entire career, so the step up is going to be big. Some people reckon he might be a bit too lean at this level. I don't think so, not for the role that you want him to play. And what you're going to be able to teach, eventually to him, because we need a coverage linebacker, and that's what you're going to do with him for us. You're going to bring on that part of his game, which is just, it's not been fully unlocked at this point, but it's going to take time. He's a UDFA for a reason. This is a long-term project with him, but he's got all the physical tools he needs. He's got the athletic tools that he needs, which are the most important things, and he's got the body of work behind it. Does have a controlled aggression problem. So like a lot of these guys with high IQ, sometimes they read plays too quickly and will make incorrect reads at times, or just jump the trigger a little bit too early. So you just got to calm it down a little bit and just get everything working on a level playing field. But overall, he's the tone setter. He's the guy who goes out there and drags his team with him. And, in terms of that mentality and that mindset, he's going to come onto this Lions team. And our linebackers who think they're safe on this roster are not going to be safe, because he is going to try and best them in every phase of special teams and not let them ignore him that way. And then what he offers, which none of the others do in terms of coverage, is where he's going to work his way onto this roster, and I think he's going to stay there as well. Sometimes with a player, you just know, you listen to them, you see the way they play. I've had that tingle in the past with guys, and you get the tingle with him. They give him the opportunity, then he'll take it. And with Kelvin here and the ability they've had, it's one of the few areas on this entire team altogether where day threeers have been developed well, and they make the roster and they have big impacts on the roster. So he's got a great defensive coordinator to work under that's gonna make the most of him. So yeah, Eric Hunter, I have no doubt he's going to make this team for me. He's a lot more exciting and has more upside than some of the other guys that he is competing against. And yeah, at the end of the day, it is that feeling, but that feeling's been right for me before. So yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait. I absolutely love him. I can't wait to see him in camp and see him ball out.
Paul?
Yeah, I think it's well known that Ant is the driver of the train for Eric Hunter. I am in first class on that train. As soon as Ant introduced him to me, I absolutely fell in love with his tape. He's long-limbed, as Ant said. He's got the production, the testing, and the tape. I really don't understand why he didn't get drafted. I get the lack of, or the lower opposition, the strength of opposition. However, when you are playing at a lower level, you have to dominate. He did that. He was clearly the best player on the field every time he took to the field. And I think that's why, and you mentioned there at times he diagnosed wrong slightly, or he guessed on the play. It's because he was expected to be the man to make the play. No one else on that, no disrespect to them, no one else on that Bears team really was going to make that play. You mentioned his athleticism, man. Just to put into perspective how athletic he is, he ran a 4.4840, which would have been third at the combine amongst linebackers. 10-yard split of 1.58 was tied for second. His vert wasn't brilliant, to be fair. 37 inches would have been tied for 11th, so still not bad. His 10'10" broad would have been second, and his 4.21 short shuttle also would have been second. I think he's got the best chance, probably maybe outside of Kitzelman, in my eyes, to make the roster. Even if you put Batchy in ahead of him, which I don't, he's linebacker 8. It's not hard to climb up 2 spots in that depth chart for me to become 6. As Ant said, he'll contribute on every single phase of special teams. And he offers, on defense, he offers something that we don't have in any of these other linebackers. He's got range, he can cover, he's got good ball skills. And what I like about him as well, if he does get tied up on the block, which will happen at 224 pounds, that will happen at the NFL level. But he's got like Inspector Gadget arms that just sort of pop out, and he's able to engage the ball carrier while being blocked. It's quite a skill. I'm so high on him.
Ash?
Yeah, same. Like, ever since we got him as a UDFA, other than Ant, I've probably been leading the charge on pretty much everyone's social medias. But I've put it, I think, twice on Pride of Detroit. Tomorrow, when I'm on Talking Courier, I'm going to, again, signpost them all to this because, yeah, for me, he's not even linebacker 8. He's linebacker 7. Batch is below him. And as much as it pains me, I could see him taking over Damone Clark on the depth chart, maybe even the Wasky. He's that good. We've seen it a couple of years ago with Rodrigo that Shepard is not scared to bump veteran players down for rookie if they're playing better. I think Hunter is going to be that UDFA everyone falls in love with at training camp, and everyone be like, "Where the hell did he come from?" And then Ant especially can hold his head high and say, "Told you so." For me, and I know he's going to get some consternation from our viewers here. I prefer Hunter as a linebacker than I do Rolder, and we spent a high draft pick on Rolder.
Oh, absolutely. I'm 100% with you on that. I had a higher grade on Hunter than I did on Rolder.
If anyone wants to have some fun, I won't add anything more than this. Just go and watch some tape of his. There's not a huge amount of it on YouTube, I will say, but go and watch it and then see what you think, rather than us just blathering on about it at this point, because I think, this show more than anyone else, like you guys have been saying, that Ant's driven that train. We've said enough at this point. Just go and watch him. All right, we have got 2 more guys to go, and we start with one of Poole's, Amaris Brown.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, so Maris Brown out of UNLV, 5'10", 197. He'll turn 24 in August. He's an out-and-out nickel defender. He has been in college for 6 years. He was at Kansas State for his first two, then 3 years at USF, where he played with someone that Ant will talk about very shortly in 2024, and then his last year at UNLV. Some stats in 2025, 7 PBUs, 4 picks, 2 of which he returned to the house. He's not a great athlete testing wise. 4'5", 40, 34.5-inch vert, that sort of level, sort of mid-level. Reminds you of anyone who currently plays for us. But when you watch him on tape, he looks fluid, smooth, and effortless when he moves. He covers space well. He can cover in man, cover in zone. My final line here, I'm skipping a bit here, but my final line is that he's just a ball player. He just knows where the ball is, how to play it. He's a very good blitzer. There's no holes in his game that I can see from what I only watched like a game and a half, granted, but there's no holes that I saw in his game. But he's also got no speciality to hang his hat on either. He's just an all-round good football player. Having said that, he has now entered a very crowded room. So his prospects about making the roster are slim, I'd say, but he's definitely a practice squad candidate for me because I think he's a very good football player. Good blitzer, covers in man, I've said that. Good instincts in zone, triggers quickly. Good tackler. I've got nothing really bad to say about him. I'm confused why this guy wasn't drafted, other than the fact he's a 6-year player. He's played at some decent programs. UNLV is a very respectable program as a whole. Let's say he's not an elite athlete, but 4.53 isn't bad. I like him. I like his chances. I think he's going to be fun to watch in preseason games. I think that slot nickel defender is something that's really going to pop in those preseason games because the vanilla offenses that he'll play against will like the little short dinks to tight ends and slot receivers. They're going to be coming into his zone. I think he could show out in the preseason. But as I say, crowded room. I'm not sure if he'll make the 53, but I can't really find a hole in his game if I'm honest.
Ant?
Yeah, I like it. I must admit I've not really taken much note of his progress this year at UNLV, but I remember him back on that South Florida team when Golesh first took over and they were rebuilding, and he was a really good player. They kind of did get shredded a little bit, but there was a lot of productivity there. And I remember I think he was an honorable All-American that year, but the DB room was good. Braxton Clark, Schuler was the linebacker at the time, but there was a good nucleus of a team there. And yeah, he was really good in coverage. I like the work they did with him. He developed. He was one of the most crucial parts of that team. And then I think injury was kind of what did in for him a little bit, and where he struggled because he's always been very solid against the run. They use him as a blitzer as well, so he's one of those safety types who you can bring in on the blitz, and he's pretty good. I'd assume UNLV did something similar with him this year.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Yeah, because they like to do that, and then obviously you've got good production out of him as well. They're great on coverage there. You think guys like Jackson Woodard, bits like that, who've come out of that program in recent years, like their coverage work is really good. So yeah, he's one of those really intriguing ones. I absolutely loved him as a prospect once upon a time, then kind of just lost track of him a bit. But say he's a bit of an older prospect, has had a few injury issues, but he's got 3 years of solid starting experience, and his numbers are really good in terms of targets up against him. So the coverage work is good. The passer rating against is pretty good, and yeah, he's worked in systems again that I kind of trust because that USF system with Golesh is legitimate now, and it's got proper coaching there. These guys are pretty good, so I think he's one of those. You're probably going to sit him on the practice squad and just work him up that way. But there's certainly if injuries happen, there's opportunity. And he's also played both corner positions. Like they move him around a fair bit as well, so he has that versatility to him as well if that's the route they want to go. So, I'm glad we've taken a bit of a shot on him. And we'll see what it is. So yeah, it's certainly not the worst prospect we've got on here, and I'm intrigued to see how he does.
I'm quite a big fan of his quietly because I can see his ability to play split safety. Like when he's in the box or if he's playing nickel-ish areas, he loves to go and have a hit. Like he
Yeah.
will drop the shoulder, try and find the ball with it, or put his head where the ball is, which is the sort of thing you love to see, especially from Branch. He can do that. He's pretty violent, even though, like you say, Paul, he's not the most athletic guy ever because he's smart. He's getting there quickly and he twitches quite a lot. His first step's pretty nice. So top speed's lacking, but he finds the ball. And then, so that strong safety, nickel, slot, whatever he can do. But then, like you say, the free safety element of whether it's in man and being able to find the ball and PBUs and whatever, or whether it's in zone as that single high and contract the ball. I mean, it shows off on tape, it really does. So, in some ways, fairly unremarkable physically, but that's like the lowest priority position for that sort of thing. He's got it where it counts, and if he's going up against, I mean, it's going to be hard for Nickel given, what we've done recently, but if it means going up against someone like Dan Jackson for a roster spot,
Got about him.
Dan Jackson, Thomas Harper, Lauren Strickland, I think he's going to be in that mix for the last safety position on the roster. I think he could make it.
He's definitely got a chance. Practice squad's more likely for me. But then I wouldn't be surprised if the way our luck goes, if he ends up being elevated a couple of times throughout the season, and then next year makes the roster type thing. That sort of career arc I can see happening.
Ash, any thoughts?
Yeah, if obviously I haven't seen any of him, so it's completely see to you guys. But yeah, if it is that kind of do it all, master of none kind of thing that can play basically anywhere in the secondary, well, he's got some great people to learn from who do that. Vontae Maddox does it. Izzian does it. Chuck Clark's done it a bit in his career. Really good guys for him to learn off, even if he doesn't have the master of it in Branch. They're great people for him to sit behind, and even if it's him taking third string snaps in camp and we only see him really in the second half of the preseason games, if he flashes, yeah, he'll be on the practice squad. We might need him because obviously, yeah, our secondaries we will refer to, we are injury prone there because we like to play right now. But also not be surprised to see another team come in for him around cut down so he doesn't make it to the practice squad, because you look around the league at some secondaries, Jesus, there's a good read. We are lucky we have this much depth right now, which I know we built up because we have the issues. But yes, some teams, their secondaries are not good at all. See if it doesn't work here. He shows that in preseason. He could get a job elsewhere, kind of like what Thomas Harper did last year with us when we needed guys. Would not be surprised if he is on a 53 Cup the first game week of September.
All right. We are on to our last one, and are you ready for Rucker?
Yes, I am indeed.
All right, here we go.
So yeah, as Paul mentioned, we've just mentioned one of this guy's former teammates, but having a former Bull here, we have a current Bull, someone who finished his time there. So we've got Deshaun Rucker, the cornerback from the University of South Florida, 5-year player. He was initially recruited by Tennessee, and man, he was only a 3-star, but he was one of those. There was a lot of expectation around him. This guy is an athlete. He can run. He's ran like a 10-6 100-meter sprint. Like he's one of those proper track guys who really sort of wows you when you see him running in a straight line. And did all sorts of sports while he was a younger. He was a state long jump record holder as well. So when it comes to his testing, broads, all that sort of stuff, he's really good. The athlete in there is a great guy. In terms of being at Tennessee, didn't really get into the side there. He played 24 games over a 3-year span with them. Only got 2 starts though. Spent most of his time on special teams. But in the plus column, that means he is an extensive special teamer. He's a four-phase special teamer, so he's been on plenty of the different units there. So the guy knows how to work on teams, which is obviously going to be good for him and where he's going to be on this depth chart to start with. And as I say, yeah, it showed flashes at Tennessee. There was a game they played against Alabama where he was really good, and you kind of thought like he's going to break through into this team now, and it never really quite happened. So he did the best he could, didn't get his opportunity, so he moved down to the group of five and probably landed at the perfect program. Golesh and the Bulls, who've just been a revelation these last few years. They've had some of the best seasons ever, and the Bulls have been one of the best teams in the group of five due to guys like him who've brought that power experience with them. And over the last 2 years, he's really morphed into a really good player, taken nearly 1,300 snaps in that time, nearly 100 tackles, 29 run stops, just the one interception, 13 pass breakups. Passer rating against him this year was just 76. Guy who can kind of play all over. He just used to play at outside cornerback at Tennessee, but Golish has really deployed him all over the show. He does primarily play on the outside, but they've played him a lot more in the box this year as well because he's a very physical guy who likes to hit, and they've kind of discovered that. He's played a little bit of free safety and slot as well, so depending on what you need from him, you can get. But anyone who knows USF, they are an incredibly man-heavy team, and they like guys who, and this is kind of similar to what Abney is, guys who get in people's grills and make life uncomfortable for them. They like to get hands, and they like to trade blows, and they like to play the game physically that way. And that's kind of where his coverage really sort of comes into effect, where he just really disrupts guys off the line of scrimmage and doesn't allow them to get into a rhythm, and is able to make plays on the ball as a result of that. As I say, like maybe the end, like getting the turnovers and bits like that have never quite been there. But as I say, in terms of what he gives up, it's 53% on receptions against. He's very sticky. And like I say, he's got that athletic ability, and he's got enough solid hip movement and all the some of the fundamental techniques to be able to work in, to give himself a good floor when it's at the next level. There are some issues. Tackling needs to be refined. Like I say, he's up at the line of scrimmage getting very physical quite often. It's not like he's one who sits back, surveys the scene, makes a tackle as it is. The missed tackle rate is up at about 20%, give or take. So the tackling fundamentals need to get a little bit better. Obviously going to need to work at the next level, and that kind of filters into the run defense as well. He's much more a coverage guy than a run defense guy, and obviously you've got to bring the run defensive side of your game up with it. But I think it's more down to the system they've played, how they've asked him to play, and the fact that the last 2 years have been primarily his first years as a starter. So it's, watching that part of the game develop. The run defense went from 46 to 60 last year. It was a significant enough jump to show that he's going in the right direction. The game is developing enough. Obviously, it's just come a bit later in his collegiate career, so he's still got a bit of a distance to go. But in terms of kind of what Detroit have tried with their DBs this year, we've been crying out for guys who are much more physical at the line of scrimmage, who know how to upset receivers and not give them such an easy ride of it by just sitting in some soft ass coverage and giving up easy completions. And that's why Rucker kind of fits into that profile with Abney. These guys are a lot more physical, and they are not going to let you get away living the easy life against this team. So I don't think he's a threat to the roster in terms of this year, unless there's something seriously wrong injury wise. But for me, there's plenty to like and develop on the practice squad, and then bring him up as and when you need him, especially if you're struggling for depth. He will contribute solidly to special teams right off the bat. Again, four-phaser, knows what he's doing. And I think given time, if you can work out the kinks in his tackling technique and just keep developing that run defense. He's 6 foot 195. He's got the frame. Might be a little unsized for corner. He was initially recruited as a safety, so he does have that in him. So whether they want to maybe look at putting him into that safety room as well because he can do it. So you've got a few intriguing options here with the Sean Rucker, and as I say, over the long term, again, I do like the prospects of something he might be able to bring to this team. With no expectation there whatsoever. Kind of think Jerry when he's kind of the same style as Jerry, just absolute hard ass worker. Will keep going and going and going and give as good as he gets from everyone he comes up against. So I'm intrigued to see what happens with him. Like I say, it won't be right away, but over time, I think again the Lions have found someone who offers something a lot of our current corners don't in his physicality. So that's his way on the roster. And as we've seen, we've needed hella bad depth at corner the last few years. So he might well get a call at some stage.
Anyone have any comments?
Yeah, it's interesting to hear Ant's take because I have a slightly different take on his coverage. I actually think he's best in zone or off man coverage. Um, Now, bear in mind, I watched him against Miami, and he got burnt. I watched him against Miami to watch him against NFL wide receivers, and he struggled to stay in phase on in man coverage. Granted, one of them was Malachi Tony, and he was doing that to everyone in the country last year. But CJ Daniels as well, but that's an NFL wide receiver he couldn't stick with over the middle. So I think he's best in zone or off man where he can read the quarterback and use his 4.38 40 speed to trigger on the ball. He is very aggressive in run support. I like that. I can see him being an absolute gun on special teams as a gunner and on field goal blocks and things like that. But yeah, as Ant said, I can't see him making the roster, threatening the roster in any way, unless there's an absolute tidal wave of injuries prior to cut downs. But certainly someone to put on the practice squad and develop, I think.
Doesn't look like Ash
Yeah,
has anything. Sorry.
I was going to say, hell yeah, sign me up for another gunner because
I knew you like that.
yeah, I love our special teams, and because I know Dorsey has always been good as a gunner. He's one of the league's best gunners, but the injuries are starting to catch up with him. So I think it is interesting, inverted commas, that yeah, we've taken someone who is I like the Joe Jacobs comparison, especially since that's how Joe originally made the roster, was as a gunner, and then what happened. We had to call on him, and he won his spot there. So we were surprised when Jerry made it as UDFA way back. Got better corner room now, but still, there's questions with obviously just the whole Arnold situation. You've seen as much as I love him. There's only really good year for him. Abney, similar kind of guy from it seems where probably best enough man. And then you got that logjam of Rakeshaw, who's always injured, Whiteside, who I know we love here, but is there much more to get from him? And then Dorsey, who's injured. Would not be surprised if Rucker knocks a couple of those guys off and he is the last guy in the roster, and it's that special teams that helps him. And then further down the line, when there might be a couple of injuries, we do need to call up him. He's certainly got the ability.
I have nothing further, so I will stop there. We did have one question from Attila as well in the chat. Thanks, Attila, for asking about the Lions and who they will get the most out of with Harper, Maddox, Rakestraw, or Clark. So 3 DBs and a linebacker. But who's going to contribute the most, do you think?
Harper.
Well, yeah, he's probably going to be started, isn't he? Harper or Maddox, probably.
Yeah, Maddox would have been my answer.
I think it'd probably be Harper. Harper played better than Maddox did, so
Yeah, he did.
I would expect him to carry. It's just a case of, has the league figured him now? Could he carry it on? Because obviously he's not an unknown entity anymore. But if he does, then yeah, by far he'll be the one who produces the most.
All right. We've been going a long time. So that is the UDFA class. I think we'll call it a day there. Next...
Quickly, but if I may, God, if I gave you the line of 2.5, how many would you hit the over or under on how many UDFAs make the roster?
Under.
Interesting.
I have 2.
I reckon we could see 3, which is why I went for 2.5.
If you gave me 1.5, I think I'd still go under.
Right.
I'll go with. I've got 2. Obviously Hunter, obviously, and then Kittlesman.
I don't think Kitzelman will get it, just because we have shown, as we've gone on in this build, a reluctance to give UDFAs that roster spot. We normally give one in the last couple of years, but not more than that. So it's just going off seeing where we've headed. We were already talking.
Our tight end room is gash though, so
It is garbage.
it's garbage. It's pure garbage. So Kitzelman could make it easily if he shows the work ethic. So
sorry, Attila meant Chuck Clark, not Timon Clark. My fault there.
It doesn't change my answer.
No,
So,
still the same.
He's here for some of the young guys to learn off and just be a camp body.
Unfortunately, with him at the minute, you can't rely on him to stay healthy.
Yeah, you know how now we've got the whole veteran thing on the practice squad. You can do that. Perfect guy for that.
Mm.
All right. Yeah, college show, and I don't think you're taking a huge break, are you? You back this week?
Yeah, it might probably be next now. I need to figure a schedule for it because the preview. It's hard to do the previews right now because it's way too early. So I'm going to try and figure a schedule out. But it should be next week at the latest.
We'll be on this time next week. Subject matter TBD. We've sorted most of the next couple of months, but next week was not one that we've managed to sort a subject for yet. So if anyone has any ideas for something that they'd like to see, then please do get in touch. Otherwise, I'm sure we'll sort something out. But thank you all for listening. Just had Mile Marker say, so glad you guys do this. Otherwise, I'd had no clue about these men. Appreciate you, Mile Marker. And thanks for everyone in the chat for all the support through today. We'll see you next week. Cheers to the boys. But for now, let's go Lions One Pride.
One pride.
Fuck the Bears.
Recording
Exactly.
stopped.
I will never stop.